In the whimsical land of Wobblewonder, where the skies sparkled with cotton candy clouds and the rivers flowed with fizzy lemonade, lived a young girl named Lucy Lollipip. Wobblewonder was a place like no other, filled with creatures so colorful and quirky that they made rainbows look dull. There were giggling fluffernutters, who were fluffy little creatures that bounced around on their tiny springy legs, and mischievous snicker beasts, who loved to pull pranks, including turning the local flowers into singing daisies. Lucy was a sprightly girl with a head full of copper curls and a smile that could light up the gloomiest of days. She wore a dress made of patches of every color imaginable, which swirled around her like a whirlpool of joy when she danced. Lucy had a knack for getting into the most extraordinary adventures, most of which involved her best friend, a friendly dragon named Bubbles. Bubbles was unlike any dragon you could ever imagine. His scales shimmered in shades of bright blue and pink, and his belly was round and soft like a giant marshmallow. He was named for his bubbly personality and the way he would often let out tiny, sparkly bubbles instead of fire when he exhaled. Bubbles had a knack for making people laugh, and his laughter was contagious. One sunny morning, as Lucy twirled around her garden filled with purple poppies and singing daisies, she heard a loud thud from the nearby Wobblewood forest. The ground shook beneath her feet, and she could hear the sound of something crashing through the trees. Curious as ever, Lucy grabbed her colorful backpack, filled it with rainbow snacks, and called for Bubbles. "Bubbles, come quick. There's something happening in the Wobblewood," she shouted, her eyes wide with excitement. Bubbles floated down from the sky, his wings shimmering in the sunlight. "What's the matter, Lucy? Is it a giggle monster?" "I love those," he exclaimed, his voice bubbling with enthusiasm. "I don't know. Let's go check it out," Lucy replied, her adventurous spirit igniting. With a rush of wind and a flurry of bubbles, they zoomed towards the forest. As they approached, they saw a massive creature sitting on the ground, its head hung low. It was a dragon, but not just any dragon. This one was enormous, about the size of a house. His scales were dark and dull, and he looked rather grumpy. "Hello," Lucy called out, waving her hand. "What's wrong?" The giant dragon lifted his head slightly, revealing a pair of big, sad eyes. "Oh dear, I'm in quite the predicament," he sighed. "I'm Grimblax, the grumpy dragon of Wobblewood, and I've lost my precious golden grumble gem." "The golden grumble gem? What's that?" Bubbles asked, tilting his head. "It's a shiny gem that gives me the ability to make the best grumble soup in the whole wide world," Grimblax explained, his voice tinged with despair. "Without it, I can't prepare my famous soup for the annual Wobblewonder feast, and everyone loves it. If I don't serve it, I'll never hear the end of it." Lucy's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Don't worry, Grimblax. We'll help you find your gem. Right, Bubbles?" "Absolutely. We're like the world's best treasure hunters," Bubbles exclaimed, puffing a few colorful bubbles into the air. With that, they set off on their quest to find the golden grumble gem. The Wobblewood forest was a magical place, filled with trees that danced and giggling bushes that tickled their legs as they walked. Lucy held Grimblax's enormous claw and led the way, while Bubbles floated above, his tiny bubbles lighting up the shady path. As they ventured deeper into the forest, they encountered a group of fluffernutters bouncing around in a circle. "Hey, you fluffy friends," Lucy called out. "Have you seen a golden gem around here?" The fluffernutters looked at each other, their eyes wide with surprise. "A gem? We saw something shiny over by the giggly glade," one of them squeaked, bouncing up and down. "But beware of the Gigglethief." "The Gigglethief?" Bubbles asked, his eyes widening. "What's that?" "Oh, he's a sneaky little rascal who loves to steal shiny things and giggle about it," another fluffernutter explained, its colorful fur bouncing with excitement. "He hides them in his tickle tree." Lucy felt a surge of determination. "We can handle a little Gigglethief. Let's get to the giggly glade." They thanked the fluffernutters and rushed towards the giggly glade, where the trees were even taller and the ground was covered in soft, mossy grass. As they arrived, They spotted a peculiar tree that was shaking and vibrating, almost as if it were laughing. There it is. The tickle tree. Lucy pointed, her heart racing. Just then, a tiny creature popped out from behind the tree. He was no taller than Lucy's knee, with big round glasses perched on his tiny nose and a wide grin on his face. Well, well, what do we have here? A curious girl, a bubbly dragon, and a rather grumpy giant, he exclaimed, his voice tinkling like wind chimes. Are you the Gigglethief? Bubbles asked, crossing his arms in a mock-serious manner. Me. The Gigglethief. Oh no, I'm just Tinklepuff, the giggler of Wobblewonder, he chuckled, his laughter echoing through the glade. But I do have a shiny gem. Would you like to trade for it? What do you want in return? Lucy inquired, raising an eyebrow. I love giggles. If you can make me giggle, the gem is yours. Tinklepuff replied, bouncing in excitement. Lucy pondered for a moment. All right then. Bubbles, let's put on a show. Bubbles grinned and began to float higher into the air, while Lucy stood below, ready to entertain. She started doing silly dances, flapping her arms like a bird and hopping around in a goofy manner. Bubbles joined in by blowing bubbles of all shapes and sizes, which floated down and popped with delightful sounds. Tinklepuff watched, his eyes twinkling with mirth. Oh, this is splendid. Keep going, he giggled, clapping his tiny hands. Lucy then started telling a funny story about the time she accidentally glued herself to Bubbles with sticky honey. Bubbles pretended to be stuck, making exaggerated faces of despair. Tinklepuff rolled on the ground, laughing so hard that he almost turned into a bouncing fluffernutter. Finally, with one last silly dance that involved spinning around and falling into a pile of soft moss, Lucy made Tinklepuff burst into the loudest giggles Wobblewonder had ever heard. All right, you win, Tinklepuff squeaked, wiping tears of laughter from his eyes. Here's your golden grumble gem. Lucy held out her hands as Tinklepuff placed the sparkling gem in her palm. It shimmered like the sun, casting little rainbows everywhere. Thank you, Tinklepuff. You're the best giggler I know. Anytime. Just remember to come back and tell me more funny stories. Tinklepuff replied with a grin. With the golden grumble gem in hand, Lucy and Bubbles hurried back to Grimblax, who was anxiously waiting in the Wobblewood forest. As they approached, the giant dragon's eyes brightened up. You found it. You really found my gem. Grimblax roared with joy, his wings flapping in excitement. Yes, and now you can make your grumble soup, Lucy said, holding out the gem proudly. Tinklepuff helped us. Grimblax beamed and took the gem with his enormous claws. Thank you, little ones. I can't wait for everyone to taste my soup. You've saved the day. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Grimblax invited Lucy and Bubbles to his cave for the feast preparation. The cave was a treasure trove of colorful ingredients, with jars of sparkling spices and bubbling cauldrons scattered about. With lots of laughter and good cheer, Grimblax began to prepare his famous grumble soup. The aroma filled the air, making Lucy and Bubbles feel as if they were floating on clouds of deliciousness. When the soup was finally ready, Grimblax ladled it into shiny bowls that sparkled like stars. The three of them gathered around a giant trunk that served as a table, ready to dig in. This is the best grumble soup ever, Lucy declared, her mouth full of the warm, flavorful concoction. It's scrumptious, Bubbles chimed in, blowing bubbles of joy that floated around them. Just then, a commotion erupted outside the cave as the creatures of Wobblewonder arrived for the annual feast. Fluffernutters bounced in, followed by snickerbeasts who were dressed in silly costumes. The Gigglethief, no longer a thief, joined the fun, bringing laughter and joy with him. As night fell, Wobblewonder erupted with festivities. There were games, dancing, and lots of giggles as everyone savored Grimblax's grumble soup. Lucy felt a warm glow in her heart knowing that they had turned a grumpy dragon into a happy one, and all it took was a little ingenuity and a lot of laughter. With twinkling stars overhead and the sounds of joy filling the air, Lucy, Bubbles, and Grimblax shared stories and laughter late into the night, realizing that sometimes the best adventures are the ones that bring friends together. And so, in the magical land of Wobblewonder, where giggles floated like bubbles and the air was always sweet with laughter, Lucy Lollipip and her friends learned that problems could always be solved with a little humor and a dash of creativity.